We've officially entered into the fever dream portion of the campaign. Right is left, up is down. The Republican nominee is hanging out in a Bronx barbershop. And the Democratic nominee is hosting some sort of book club with Liz Cheney. What the f***? That's a Cheney. What are you doing with a Cheney? You're not allowed to hang out with a Cheney. They're Marvel. You're DC. You can't be in the same movie. It's a rights issue. And no one likes them. And here's the worst part. The Cheneys have somehow synced up their circuitry directly to the Madam Vice President, like right at the same time they cross their legs. They move as one. It is so surreal. This campaign cannot get any weirder.
Hello, everybody.
Sir.
My first day at McDonald's. I'm looking for a job. So, if you don't mind, I want to work the French fry counter.
Give him the job. I implore you. I don't care if his references don't shake out. Save democracy, give him the job. Now, Kamala Harris is out there sweating the details over her new opportunity economy. Trump's just out there farting around.
I love salt. Wait a minute, I spilled some. I'm very superstitious. You take it for granted. You say, give me French fries. I'll never forget this experience. I always figured somebody stuffs them in with their hand, and I don't like that. And they don't do it that way. You never touch them. It's really great.
You Forrest Gump? What are we talking about here? For decades that you've been eating at McDonald's, you thought the fries come out of the boiling oil. And the workers making that sweet, sweet $4.25 an hour just reach in and go, ah! Ah! Just with their hands. Well, you think that's how the burgers get flipped? Ah! Ah! Oh, God, someone order ice cream. Oh! That's his whole campaign right now. Ave Maria dance party. I'm going to deport everybody. Football, tailgate, blame the Jews if I lose. McDonald's drive-thru. He's out there having the time of his life. And the poor, sweet media. Oh, poor, sweet media. They know they're mad. They're just not exactly sure which thing they should be maddest about anymore. But I can tell you one thing, media, it probably shouldn't be the McDonald's thing.
This was entirely staged.
My
That
fault.
was a fake customer, yes. He is so inept at pretending to be a real person that he really, literally cannot operate the fry machine as a normal worker because he would be incapable of doing so.
What a pleasant counterpoint. Look, I'm all for criticizing Donald Trump, but I got to tell you, I also don't know how to work the fryer at McDonald's. And would be incapable of doing so. But we're at that point in the campaign. It's a fever pitch. We can no longer discern the noise from the signal. We've lost the ability to understand what level of outrage to even demonstrate. Which brings us to this weekend, where the absurdity outrage cycle reached its apex at a Trump campaign in Pennsylvania.
I'm going to tell him the real story of Arnold. But Arnold Palmer was all man, and I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. This man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God. That's unbelievable.
I want to Arnold Palmer so bad. I want to. First of all, I'm not here to fact check the former president, but Arnold Palmer wasn't all man. He was half man, half lemonade. Now, if I may, none of that is true. But it is true. Apparently, every time Arnold Palmer came out of the shower, the other golfers were like, ooh, talk about a dog leg. That is a par, wow. You're gonna need a caddy for. But the question, ladies and gentlemen, is not whether or not Arnold's Palmer is being fitted for the green jacket. It's whether the media will performatively take the bait.
This was not just crude and obscene, but it was completely inappropriate. Vulgar, lewd.
This is not presidential.
Is this really the closing message you want voters to hear from Donald Trump? Stories about Arnold Palmer's penis?
Not one, not three, but 10 minutes talking about another man's genitalia.
It's very serious. I apologize. What is the appropriate amount of time? 3 minutes I can understand. 10 minutes, it's a you problem. But I do get there is a double standard at play here. You imagine if Kamala Harris held a rally and they're like, Billie Jean King, her vagina, wow. She'd come out of the shower and all the other tennis players would shout, hello, hello, hello. Ask your parents. That would be madness. But for Trump, this was actually one of his milder genital rants. This was kind of his kids' bop genitals rant. Classy, body positive. He was complimenting somebody else. I don't know why we have to parse everything that this guy says so sternly.
We have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries.
Hey, who wants fries? Arnold Palmer's.
We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
You're not fun at all. That's not fun-loving and mischievous. That sounded quite threatening. That's actually worthy of some real examination. And all the Republicans who have talked about having fun at Trump's rallies, I'm sure they'd express concerns about this type of rhetoric.
What I want to just make very clear is that it's my belief that what former President Trump is talking about are the people that are coming over the border, that in fact are committing crimes, that are bringing drugs, that are trafficking humans. That is what I believe the president is referring to. I don't think that he's referring to elected people in America.
Oh, all right, good, because okay, because I was worried. Because it did sound bad the way that he had said it. I probably wasn't thinking clearly, but just to make sure that that is what he meant, let's give the former president himself a chance to clear up that he's really talking about drug and human traffickers coming across the border and obviously not elected officials.
Adam Shifty Schiff, who's a total sleazebag, is going to become a senator. But I call him the enemy from within.
But just Shifty Schiff, right?
And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. The more difficult are, the Pelosi's, these people, they're so sick, and they're so evil.
Are you out of your f***ing mind? The former Speaker of the House is the enemy within. Well, I bet Donald Trump is about to get an earful from the current Speaker of the House, who will, despite his support of Donald Trump, still have the courage to... I'm kidding, just roll it.
What he's talking about is marauding gangs of dangerous, violent people who are destroying public property.
Ah, yes. Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi, famous capos in the Salvadoran gang, MS NBC. Where's the we the people Constitution first outrage here? He's talking about treading on you. You always wave the don't tread on me flag. This is treading.
You are a decorated veteran. How would you feel about deploying against Adam Schiff?
Well, I don't think that's what he said, John. I think you're connecting some dots there.
It's exactly what he said. Not dots, words. We're connecting words through the ear holes with the listening. That's what he said. I understand the powerful pull of partisanship, but for my own f***ing sanity, can I get one Republican to at least acknowledge that Trump said the thing that he is repeatedly saying?
Look, Trump speaks in hyperbole. This is nothing new. He's not talking about using the military to attack people who disagree with him politically or anything like that.
He is literally saying that! He is literally saying that! What are you talking about? Literally! He is saying the enemy within, like Shifty Schiff and Pelosi. You can't just pretend that he's talking about something else. God! This is what gets us to the ultimate problem, which is this. Is any of the shit Trump says real? How are we supposed to understand what's bullshit and what isn't? Kamala Harris, she's going to have an 80-page presentation on exactly how this opportunity economy is going to function and how it's going to be paid for. Meanwhile, the standard for Trump is emotional vicinity. Apparently, it doesn't actually matter if the things he says are true. And if you try and dig down on the lies, he only gets lie-er.
When you said, it's gone viral, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, you say you're just reporting what had been said. But why not say now, well, look, that turned out not to be true.
I don't know if it's not true. I don't know if it's true or not true. I read
eating
something.
The pets, you don't know if it's true or not true? No. It's been debunked by local officials.
What about the geese? What about the geese? What happened there? They were all missing.
You won't. What about the geese? They were everywhere during the summer, but now that it's cold. And by the way, to all the Republican officials who seem very confident that Trump isn't being serious when talking about extreme measures to defeat his enemies, he's already tried it. Remember that day he tried to overthrow the government? And I know it didn't work. But attempted murder isn't the same thing as never tried the murder. So we are left with this surreal idea that somehow Trump's absurdity renders him benign. We dismiss his threats because of how much fun he has expounding on the length, width, and girth of Arnold Palmer's If only there was one dystopian moment from this past weekend that encapsulates this potent tincture of clownish campaigning mixed with authoritarian foreboding. Because I know shorter clips do better on the TikTok. Give me, I don't know, a man in an apron at a drive-through window thoughtfully considering whether or not to future coup.
Talking to reporters, Trump was asked about accepting the 2024 election results.
Either way, will you accept the results of the election?
Yeah, sure. If it's a fair election, always. I would always accept it if it's got to be a fair election.
First of all, how dare this reporter brazenly violate the no walking through a drive-through rule? And second, how the is Donald Trump in a McDonald's apron in the window of the fast food restaurant talking about whether or not he'll overturn the popular vote real life? How is this real? Did we all die during COVID?
There's breaking news about one Trump henchman who probably won't be joining in this time.
Breaking news in that civil case against former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. A federal judge ordered Giuliani to turn over all of his valuable possessions, including his Manhattan apartment, to former Fulton County elections workers Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. Giuliani owes them $150 million after they won a defamation suit against him. He claimed they were involved in election fraud after the 2020 election.
The judge wants Giuliani to hand over more than just his Madison Avenue apartment. He's ordered to surrender watches, signed Yankees paraphernalia, furniture, and even his TV. The only valuable he's allowed to keep is his grandfather's watch.
Oh, poor Rudy. Poor Rudy. And I'm not expressing empathy, by the way. I'm saying Rudy is literally poor now. He's broke, okay? He's got to give them his apartment, his car, his furniture, even his TV. Do you know how badly you have to lose a court case that 9/11 is the second worst thing that's ever happened to you? It really makes you realize how random justice is in this country. This man lost his entire fortune for trying to steal the election, while the man who he was trying to steal the election for has faced no repercussions at all. It's like when I get yelled at for going to the strip club, even though there were 45 other men also at the strip club. And why doesn't my wife yell at them? Well, let's move on to the current election, okay? In the home stretch of the 2024 campaign, Donald Trump has gained a critical new supporter, Elon Musk. A man of gravitas, a man of dignity, a man with roughly a 4-inch vertical leap, and president of the Funny Tummy Club. But he's also the richest man in the world. I mean, he's so rich, he bought Twitter just to drive it into the ground for his own personal pleasure. And now he's thinking, well, what if I did the same with America?
Tech mogul Elon Musk making a surprise pledge while stumping for Trump, launching $1 million giveaway for voters who signed his petition in favor of free speech and the right to bear arms.
Wow. Elon's giving $1 million to his fans. Now they can afford the best anime girlfriend pillow money can buy. So how exactly does this gift work?
So every day between now and the election, we'll be awarding $1 million, starting tonight. Tonight's person is Jon Dreher.
Wow, how exciting for Jon Dreher. But maybe less exciting once you realize that they filled in the money section with Jon Dreher. Although I'm not sure it matters since Elon put his signature dead center in the check, which, as everyone knows, is exactly not where you're supposed to put it. But hey, he's a disruptor. Also, just a missed opportunity. Put something funny in the memo section, right? May I suggest butt medicine? I mean, my landlord loves when I do that. But forget all that. What exactly do you have to do for that $1 million?
The only thing we ask for the $1 million is that you be a spokesperson for the petition, and that's it, really. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Bye. That's how uncharismatic Elon Musk is. He can hand someone $1 million, and they're just like, so I can just go now? Because I've seen people more excited to win a dishwasher on The Price is Right. And I know what you're thinking right now. How could Republicans sink so low? And also, can I sink low enough to register for this? Well, yes, but you better hurry up because it's not quite clear if this whole thing is cool with Johnny Law.
Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro questioned the legality of this giveaway and said it's something law enforcement should be taking a look at.
When you start flowing this kind of money into politics, I think it raises serious questions that folks may want to take a look at.
Yeah, okay. This whole thing may violate election law, but Good luck to the Democrats trying to stop it. That'll win over voters. We're taking $1 million from you. Vote Harris-Walz. But of course, billionaires in politics isn't anything new. Democrats have George Soros and Mark Cuban. Republicans have Steve Wynn, Dan Snyder, and I think the Monopoly Man. But Elon is also getting personally involved in a way that we've never seen before. Not only has he donated $75 million to Trump's re-election effort, not only has he spoken at Trump's rallies, but his super PAC, America PAC, is essentially running Trump's entire Get Out the Vote campaign. And fun fact, he wanted to call his PAC @America on Twitter, but someone else already had that handle. So he just took it from them. He literally stole America. But don't worry, in exchange, he gave them the handle @America123_12. Really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? You couldn't have given him a cooler handle than that? You give him @Henry Kissinger. He's not using that anymore. But look, any of us can funnel millions of dollars into an election. Musk's real influence is turning Twitter into Donald Trump's personal propaganda machine.
Musk also uses X, formerly Twitter, which he owns, to promote Trump to his 200 million plus followers. According to a CBS News investigation, Musk has used X to amass 3.3 billion views on posts about election security so far this year. 55% of the posts contained or amplified false or misleading information, including unsubstantiated conspiracies.
Holy shit, 3.3 billion views for conspiracies and misinformation? And yes, 1 billion or 2 of those views come from sex bots that only tweet things like, click here to see crypto in my But that's still a huge amount of propaganda. 55% of the posts had misinformation, so he's wrong half the time. Well, thank God he only controls Twitter and not some sort of rocket company, And if you're on Twitter like me, you know that he doesn't just tweet the stuff out to his followers. He puts it in your feed whether you follow him or not. It's gotten so bad that the other day, I almost closed Twitter and talked to my family. Can you imagine that? Honestly, I should just get off Twitter entirely, except I've been talking to this smoking hot Russian chick whose is made of crypto. So Elon has formed a very close alliance with Donald Trump. So close, in fact, that Trump says if he wins, he'll give Elon a job in his administration cutting government waste. And Elon already has some really dumb ideas for how to do that.
So we've talked about kind of a government efficiency commission, or the Department of Government Efficiency, where we just take a look at all the federal agencies and say, do we really need whatever it is, 428 federal agencies? Like, there's so many that people have never even heard of.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks, If you've never heard of something, that means we don't need it, right? Seriously, the parietal lobe? I've never heard of it, all right? Don't need it. That's right, people. Slim Shady, a.k.a. Marshall Mathers, a.k.a. the reason Stan drove off that bridge. Stan, you really think stars like Eminem read their own mail, idiot? But oh man, this is going to be good. Eminem has recorded some of the most brutal tracks of all time. He has a song where he stuffs people in the trunk of a car. He rapped about wanting to see President Bush dead. He called his own mom a slut. The point is, Eminem is going to destroy Trump, so let's go.
The spotlight is on us more than ever, and I think it's important to use your voice. So I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote, please.
Please? Wow, this guy got polite, Now everybody in the 313, put your hands up and fill out your voter registration in a timely fashion, please. And M didn't even perform. But that was okay because he was just the warm-up to Barack Obama, the real rapper of the night.
I was feeling some kind of way following Eminem. Now I notice my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep bomb spaghetti.
Holy shit. Did he just come up with that on the spot? I mean, that was so good, it should be a song. But it's nice to see Obama pay homage to Eminem because it means that black people have finally accepted that Eminem is the greatest rapper of all time. And look, oh, stop. I know how it feels. I went through it every time Tiger Woods won a golf tournament, okay? I will say, maybe Obama should skip that line about dropping bombs, you know? Are you still rapping or are you doing a drone strike? Too real. Don't laugh. Too real, too real, too real. But even if you were to be let down that Eminem didn't go hard, don't worry. Because over in Wisconsin, an up-and-coming rapper dropped an epic Donald Trump diss track.
He's ducked debates, but you can't blame him. When you get your ass whipped that hard, you don't come back for seconds. He has been rambling more than the normal rambling. He calls it the weave. Donald, come on. We know there's only one weave that you know anything about. Being at McDonald's, he looks much more like Ronald McDonald than the clown that he actually is. And Ronald wears less makeup. His running mate, Elon Musk. Look, Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it.
Wow. This campaign has changed Tim Walz. A month ago, he was like, oh, gee whiz, I love going to Menards. And now he's all, how about you suck my nards, huh? Yeah, suck my nards. And I know some people think it's stooping to Trump's level when Democrats throw around insults like dipshit. But personally, I think politicians should be swearing way more often. Audiences always love it. Hey? Yeah. Isn't that right, you dipshits? How you do it? Nice work, audience. But the biggest attack against Trump at the moment isn't coming from Obama or Walz. It's coming from one of the top people in Trump's own White House.
This morning, Donald Trump's former chief of staff and retired General John Kelly with a blistering rebuke of the Republican nominee for president, calling him a fascist with no concept for the rule of law or the Constitution.
What do you think? Do you think he's a fascist?
He certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
Wow. Donald Trump's old chief of staff is calling him a fascist. That is huge. Although I will say, telling America you're about to elect a fascist is a pretty major thing to announce in an audio clip, you know? You couldn't put on pants and say it into a camera. It's kind of like if aliens were invading and the president told us in a screenshot from his notes app. Just seems like the wrong medium. Let me back up here for a second. That word fascism gets thrown around a lot, and it's one of those words you hear frequently, but you don't actually know what it means, like emoluments or demure. So let me give you a definition. Fascism is a nationalist political movement that builds a cult around an all-powerful leader who vows to protect his loyal subjects from racially inferior others and the enemy within. Now that you know that, upon hearing John Kelly calling Trump a fascist, you're probably thinking, yeah, duh. By the way, Kelly isn't even the only general who served with Trump who feels this way. General Milley, Trump's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, also said Trump is a fascist to the core. General Mattis, General McMaster, both Trump cabinet officials have said Trump violated the Constitution. And keep in mind, these guys were the adults in the room in the first Trump administration, keeping Trump from going full dictator. And they're not going to be there the second time around. Maybe it's just me, but I'm not ready to put the future of American democracy in the hands of Secretary of Defense My Pillow guy. But it gets even crazier. It gets crazier because according to John Kelly, Trump's such a fascist that he even has an all-time favorite dictator. And if you're thinking, no, it can't be. Yes, it can.
He would he commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things, too.
Yeah, Hitler did some good things. I mean, after all, he killed himself. Do we clap at that? Are we... Seriously, Trump, Hitler never did anything good. He even sucked at waving. Like, dude, God gave you elbows. Use them. That's how I wave. But what Kelly explained in an interview with the Atlantic magazine is that what Trump really loved about Hitler was how he surrounded himself with yes men, or as they say in Germany, ja men.
The title of the piece quotes Trump as once having said, "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had." Trump adding, people who are totally loyal to him, that follow orders.
Yeah, I feel like Trump took the wrong lesson from the Holocaust. The lesson I learned was not to do the Holocaust, but the lesson he learned was, wow, the Nazis were great listeners. Yeah, And apparently the first time Kelly heard this, Trump didn't mention Hitler at first. He just said German generals. So Kelly tried to give Trump an off-ramp, but he wasn't taking it.
Kelly told Goldberg when Trump raised the subject, he responded by asking, "Do you mean Bismarck's generals?" Kelly went on, quote, "I mean, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War. I said, do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals." And he said, yeah, Hitler's generals.
I mean, Kelly was trying so hard to give him an out. Okay, you said German generals, but you don't mean Hitler's generals. Okay, you do mean Hitler. Okay, but you mean like Nathan Hitler, the guy my wife goes to Pilates with, right? Help me out here, man. Help me. I love how he was like, you mean Bismarck's generals, right? My man, the only generals Trump knows are the Chinese one that makes that chicken and the guy who teamed up with Shaq to sell car insurance. That's it. Anyway, this is pretty indefensible stuff. And when Trump does something truly indefensible, you can always count on Fox News to defend it.
It's your job to do what the president wants. And I could absolutely see him go, now, you know what? It would be great to have German generals that actually do what we asked them to do, knowing that's a third, maybe not fully being cognizant of the third rail of German generals who were Nazis and whatever.
Okay. Did you just whatever the Holocaust? Whatever is for insignificant things, like when you put the plastic recycling in the paper recycling. It's not, oops, I did a genocide. I like that Kill Me thinks praising Hitler is a third rail, like it's a taboo subject that's not PC to discuss at the office anymore. Oh, you can't even compliment a woman's haircut or tell her about all the good things Hitler did anymore. Thanks, woke police. This was even a little too far for some of the other people on the couch. Watch Steve Doocy as he realizes where Kill Me is going with this.
You know what? It would be great to have German generals that actually do what we asked them to do.
Poor guy. He looks nervous. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Donald Trump has been bringing in some special guests, too.
I have never in my life spoken at a political rally. I've covered a million of them for over 30 years, and I've never spoken at one, never thought I would. I can't believe I'm here.
Hey, I don't want to be a hater. He's excited for his first political rally. Seems like a perfectly reasonable time to laugh like an old-timey villain who tied a woman to the railroad tracks. So let's hear what his argument is for electing Trump.
There has to be a point at which Dad comes home. And when Dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl. And it has to be this way.
Okay, so this might be why you've never been invited to speak at a political rally before. You see, America, these Trump people, they aren't weird. They just know that Trump is a big, strong daddy that's coming home to spank us all. Totally normal stuff. I can't wait to hear Tucker's thoughts on the economy. Inflation is like a babysitter, and she's been naughty. But hey, that's just me. Donald Trump, what are your thoughts on Tucker's intro?
I'm going to come.
Right. I figured as much. I figured. So Kamala and Trump are pulling out all the stops to get their message out to voters. But at this point, it seems like many voters have heard enough.
How would you describe the onslaught of political ads so far this year?
Chaos. Complete chaos. They're ridiculous.
Absolutely no escape. I mean, you go on TikTok, Facebook, it's everywhere.
We're all sick of it. I think it's overwhelming.
It's wearing me out.
And all of a sudden, it's nothing but like, illegal immigrants.
she's the border czar. She's not the border czar. And we're just trying to get in the false spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look what you've done, America. You've ruined this man's false spirit. You've made him so anxious, he can't even enjoy apple picking anymore. I'm just kidding. Nobody really enjoys apple picking. Except for me, honey. I can't wait to go this weekend. Why would I want to sit on the couch and watch a football game when I could ruin my shoes to bring home 70 apples? I mean, we eat what, 1 apple a week? It totally makes sense that we'd bring home 2 years worth of apples. But with the leftovers, you can make an apple crisp. No one has ever made an apple crisp. My point is there's a lot of political ads, especially in the swing states. I spent a weekend in Pennsylvania recently, and every single commercial break, it was Kamala Trump, on and on and on. I actually wept tears of joy when a Cars for Kids ad came on. And then one of those kids said, Kamala Harris wants to turn me trans. And I realized it was just another campaign ad. Jesus Christ. And it's not just that it's annoying. This barrage of politics, it's taking a toll on our mental health.
A new poll from the American Psychiatric Association finds that 73% of people surveyed cite the election as a source of anxiety.
31% said they're fearful when thinking about the election. Now, a separate survey done by Pew Research found the majority of Americans feel exhausted when thinking about politics. Most said it made them feel angry.
People's irritable bowel syndrome is flaring. That happens every election cycle.
Irritable bowel syndrome? This election is so scary, Americans are literally shitting themselves. Although, we got some sufferers in the audience tonight. Although this does work as a convenient excuse. You can leave the bathroom at your friend's place like, sorry about the smell. Election year. But if you ask me, there's one major sign that America has lost its mind this election, and that sign is our behavior around, well, signs.
They've been snatched from yards, burnt to pieces. In another critical battleground state, Wisconsin, police receiving several reports of stolen and vandalized signs. One letter left behind saying voting for Kamala Harris will lead to blood on your hands. Trump supporter Ben Ganther says he isn't taking any chances after he had one of his signs stolen and another sign cut through.
They didn't get the Trump sign this time because I had wrapped it in chicken wire.
Man, are we really stealing signs now? You know that person can still vote. It's not like if you take the sign off their lawn, they're going to be like, I forgot who to vote for. What's that sign say? Deer crossing? I guess I'll vote for deer crossing. I don't know. The only thing more deranged than stealing someone's sign is the lengths that some people are going to prevent that sign from being stolen.
A resident in Leesburg, Virginia, took matters into his own hands, sparking panic after rigging his anti-Harris sign with tripwire and alarms. In Tempe, Arizona, police arresting 60-year-old Jeffrey Michael Kelly for hanging multiple anti-Harris signs with white powder and razor blades attached.
All right. You guys are really going to kill someone over a campaign sign. Pace yourself. The Civil War doesn't start for a few weeks, but Jesus Christ, fellas, maybe it's time for a hobby, no? I never thought I'd say this, but have you tried apple picking? My wife is looking for someone to go with. But Trump supporters better watch out with their anthrax and their razor blades because Democrats can hit back just as hard.
John Scarborough had a sign showing support for Vice President Harris in his garden until one night it disappeared.
I got some gold craft glitter, mixed it up with some Vaseline, and I smeared it on all 4 edges. You know, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I at least want them to understand that actions have consequences.
Yep, and there's the election in a nutshell. The Republican strategy is to kill you, and the Democratic strategy is merely kind of gay. Although, to be fair, if you tried to get glitter out of anything, I'd rather grab razor blades, to be honest. And you don't have to booby trap a sign to stop a thief. You just have to get high tech.
Missouri resident Laura McCaskill putting an Apple AirTag on her harris-walz signs after she says thieves stole them 3 times.
Did you open the trunk of your vehicle and show us that it's not there?
Using the GPS to track down these young men and their mother, all as cameras rolled.
I'm sorry, this is funny. Why don't you just take them all? Here you go, liberals.
Well, it's more than that, actually.
No, it's not. It's so stupid. Just go vote. It's a felony, ma'am. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It actually is.
Ma'am, please don't throw these at me.
Stop that. I'm so tired of...
Hold on. You're giving them attitude for the stuff your son stole? That's the law and order party for you. No, see, when we commit crimes, it's funny, okay? But honestly, I'm disappointed at these high school kids. They're spending their Saturday nights going around stealing political yard signs. If they were my kids, I'd be like, you go up to your room and you smoke weed like a normal teenage boy. Yeah, the way I do. But I don't want to give you the idea that everyone is stealing yard signs. No, because some people are actually adding them.
A Davis voter is raising concerns after a UPS driver was caught on camera leaving opposing political signs on her lawn.
The driver here seen walking up on the property, leaving about 10 tiny Trump flags.
When Shelley Bales checked the lawn of her Davis home, she found these, nearly a dozen small flags supporting former President Donald Trump's 2024 campaign.
Aw, make America cute again. Seriously, you call that a MAGA flag? Good luck beating a police officer unconscious with that. What are you even hoping to achieve with a flag that small? You think someone's going to be walking by like, whoops, I dropped my keys and I don't even know who to vote for. Hey, I have an idea. You know what the problem with all these people stealing signs? They face no repercussions. Tucker Carlson was right. These people need a vigorous spanking. Yeah. These men need their exposed bottoms spanked bright and rosy red.
I'm gonna come.
Yeah. We know. Look, here's the bottom line. I know we don't like these elections that last 2 years and cost $1 billion, but we've got to learn to deal with it. And don't give me the, what if we had shorter elections that cost less money? That's just not how democracy works, okay? Unless, of course, you're talking about Canada or France or Britain or Germany or Australia or every other democracy on earth except for ours.